Well, it's a somewhat grey Monday morning here. I recently did a roughly 1400-mile drive in the car, way down south, as far as Salisbury, to Stonehenge. And I noticed on a couple of occasions there was a grinding sound coming from the rear right wheel, so driver's side passenger wheel. I think it's something related to the handbrake, and then I was in Edinburgh the other day and it did it again, so I'm not sure what's going on, but having a quick look at this, there seems to be a reason. You probably can't see that because I've not got the bloody flash on. It's meant to be on, but there we go. There's a bit of wear there actually. These were only fitted less than 2 years ago anyway. They're Napa branded discs, and they've probably not even done 10,000 miles, so for rear discs I'm not too impressed, but I'll need to see what they're like on the inside. So anyway, first things first, I'm going to get the car jacked up and wheel off and take it from there. See what's going on. Hopefully it's nothing too deadly. Well, you're going to get the benefit of seeing my fat arse today. I've got the use of a wee tripod, so I've put the jack under here at the jack point. I've got my mat for working on. I've got my torque wrench, and now to get the wheel off and then put the wheel underneath the sill, so I shall end up putting the wheel under here. A bit of bonus content here. You see the angle of that wheel lug nut, it's getting jammed, so this Parkside torque wrench kit is starting to wear, so I'm not sure if that's covered under warranty with Parkside. It's not been used that many times, but anyway, a little tip for anybody that's thinking about buying a cheap and cheerful Parkside torque wrench. So I finally got the nut off, but yeah, you can see where it's kind of jamming, so there's a bit of a gap, there's a bit of wear, so I'll need to see about getting another 21mm socket, I think. Anyway, back to the task in hand. Jacked up and getting this wheel off. I've got one more nut to do, I think. Yeah, I got one more to do. Right, so here we go. I can feel something's kind of gripping there. The handbrake is off. Quite a bit of wear on that, as I say. Not horrific, but it's nice and smooth, so the caliper operation is working fine. I'm going to first of all try adjusting the mechanism. Now, I'll need to go in. Now I can feel going back the way. I don't know if that's the automatic brake function or not, but I can definitely feel when I go backwards it's not moving, but it's moving that way fine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a flat blade screwdriver and adjust the shoes so they're slightly further in. Right, so when you look at this brake disc, this access hole, there's usually a rubber grommet for that there. It's disappeared on mine. I don't think it was actually one when I first got the car. So you get a flat blade screwdriver, you put it in like that, and then you'll feel like the sprocket. So that's at it. So now you turn it this way, and you hopefully turn it the right way. That feels tighter to me. I need to come all the way back round again because this thing's hanked on. So screwdriver in vertically. That's it there. Turn down. So turning down must be tight, isn't it? Up. Up. You'll feel the teeth. Up. See how that's looser now? Okay, so I can do it both ways now. So that's the stop. So I've got it vertically, turn it horizontally, and that's on the teeth there. It's just off the 6 o'clock position, just slightly off the 6 o'clock position. So that's there. Right, so that's, there is a bit of, there's definitely a bit of something there. It's like it's locking itself on. So doing that, it seemed to be okay, but now it doesn't. So I'm going to put the handbrake on and let it off again. Okay, so I put the handbrake on, applied it, and I've let it off again. That's going freely, but I can hear something there. There's something rubbing. Definitely stops when I turn it back the way, which it probably shouldn't. So I think what I'm going to have to do now is I'm going to have to undo these 2 screws. I'll take the caliper off, which is a pain in the arse because you have to get, there's a bolt at the back that goes into like a cross member that you've got to remove, which makes it far more difficult than it should be. But anyway, that's what I'm going to do next. Right, so I've got to take the caliper bolts off. These are 14mm in this case. If you've ever changed your slides or the slide pins, you might have a slightly different size of bolt. But anyway, there are 14s on this, so I'm going to remove these first, get the caliper off, and then I'm going to get access to this area, which holds the caliper mount on, which, as I say, totally unnecessary, but that's the way they've designed it, which is not the best for DIY stuff. But anyway, that's what I've got to deal with. This is actually a fairly straightforward job, but you always get something that cocks things up. So this nut is not playing, it's kind of rounded off. So that's a 14 and it's loose. So I'm going to see if I can maybe bash on a 13mm and get it off. I said originally it was that bolt there that's to come out. It's not, it's this one here. So that's for the bottom of the damper, but this is the one, that's the cross member that makes this more difficult. You have to get this bolt out to take the pad carrier off. Why they've done it like that I don't honestly know, but anyway, I'll see about getting this pesky bolt out that's diminished in size due to rust. Well, that's another case of brute force and ignorance. So I've hammered a 13mm on, and that's now loose, so I'll be able to get that out. Say some folk say you shouldn't put any kind of anti-seize compound on, but you'd never get the bloody things out here in Scotland with the corrosion. So that's that done. Right, so that's the caliper removed. As you can see, it's spinning very nice and freely. I don't think the pads are particularly moving, so the shit, all the crap in there. That slide pin is solid, and that slide pin is solid. So I'll need to get a spanner and see about releasing them. So yeah, that's not doing it any help. I don't think these were greased up that long ago actually, but anyway. So I'm going to knock these pads out. The pads are still fine. See, there is a bit of a lip on that disc, but the contact seems to be okay. And it's quite clean and clear there, but there's maybe half a mil or something of a lip. So anyway, I'm going to take the pads out. I've given up with the tripod. I'll just hold the bloody thing. Right, so as you see, there's a bolt here which I believe is a 17mm that holds the caliper mount onto the hub there. But this one, this part of it is held on here. Now some people say you can get a crow's foot spanner in there, in this bit here. I don't have a crow's foot spanner to do that, but so my solution is, or my option is to undo this. So I need to get a spanner on here, and then I'll use my impact gun on this end and hopefully it'll come out. It's been done before, so it should come out. It looks pretty horrible, but shouldn't be. Well, famous last words. I didn't think I'd have a problem getting that one off, but anyway I did. Well, on this end it was a 16mm, and on the bolt, which fortunately had lubricant put into it, it's a 17. You can see the 17 on here. There we go. 17mm. So that came out quite nicely. No problems at all. If you have the nut on this end, it's a hell of a lot more difficult to get the bolt out. But anyway, that's that. So that's that undone, and then I need to undo this 17mm here. Well, that's that all undone. This was a bit of a bugger to get out. That was a 13mm, that's a 17, but it was a 13, and pretty corroded as you can see. And it probably could do with a bit more copper grease. So this should now pop out, and then this whole assembly should come off in theory, and then it'll let me get into the disc to check the handbrake function. Right, so that one's undone, and now I've got access to the bolt in here. So you can either have this cross member up or down, but I think just put it there, and then hopefully I'll get, I think it's a 17, I'll confirm in a minute though. Well, actually I do believe this one, you can see that it's actually a 13mm, I think. Okay, so I got that bolt out. It was actually a 14, but it's a little bit rusty, but there's a little bit of wear. I was using a hexagonal socket. There was still a little bit of play in it. So anyway, it's out now. And then I've just started wiggling the slide pins. They are lubricated in there, you wouldn't think so. But anyway, I've got some different grease to put on them. So next thing is to undo the retaining screws and see what's going on. Alright, so that's the two Phillips retaining screws. Now before you take this off, make sure you put this roughly to the 6 o'clock position, and as I say, put your screwdriver in until you find the adjuster, because you might need to undo, as in slacken the shoes internally to get this off. So this is me. There's no, oh, I can see what's happened. One of the clips has come off. You see it there. You can see part of it there. So that's been the problem. This needs a bloody good clean out. and then this spring assembly needs to be reassembled. Well, what's happened is somehow that's got bent, and both pins which hold the shoes in have come out. So there should have been one there holding it, and there should have been one just in there. You can kind of see it just there. So these somehow came off. I don't know why, but not really what you want. So anyway, I'm going to clean this up and see what's going on. There's that adjuster. Doesn't look particularly fresh and clean, so I'm going to take these shoes off and then see about reassembling it all. I'll straighten up that pin. These were aftermarket springs and pin clips, so maybe they're not the same quality as the original Kia ones, but that's just been moving around in there, shaking up all this stuff. So that's been what the problem is. Alright, so I've just used a vice and I've kind of squished that back into somewhat straight shape. There's a wee bit of a bend in it still. Probably could do a fettling it very slightly, but it might not be that critical. Well, there was multiple problems with these. So the heads of these have diminished, so they've pulled through. So that's useless. Then this bit, you'll see, is wider. This opening is wider than the head. So what I've done is I've gone along to see my pal John at the local garage, and he had some used springs and retaining clips. So these ones seem to be okay. So I'm going to pop them in and then refit the shoes. So these aftermarket ones were a complete and utter load of crap, to put it mildly. Didn't help them getting turned around inside the brake disc, of course, but I'm going to see if these ones fit, and hopefully we're back in business. Right, so I have decided to try using cable ties to hold it in, and I think I've turned that to the right bit. I'll double check it before I release the tension. But anyway, I'm trying cable ties to compress it, because I'm just fighting against myself trying to get the spring over that and then get that bloody cap thing on it. But anyway, I'll give that a go. I'll get a knife and cut it and see if it stays in position. Right, so maybe needs to move around very slightly anti-clockwise, and then I'm going to give it a cut, see if it stays in position. Well, that was a bit fiddly, but it has worked. So I'm going to do the same on the other side. I'm going to try smaller cable ties and then release them. I used a Stanley knife to cut them. So I'll do the same thing again here. Cable tie the spring, put the retaining washer over it, and then cut the cable ties. Alright, so that's that zip tied together. That's then going to go over there once you put the shoe on, and then it makes it a lot easier, trust me. Well, finally getting somewhere. So that's the new, these are actually Volkswagen Polo shoe retaining clips, there and there. So that seems alright. This was okay getting on. This I actually used a very thin screwdriver, put it in the hook, put it into the recess and pulled it across and in. So that's okay. Underneath, it's not quite so easy to see. I put it on this side first. Now that rubs against the adjuster, so I had a bit of farting about there, because the I must have had it fully tightened and I couldn't get the thing to rotate, so I was on and off thinking what the hell's going on, because it was moving freely at this end but it was wound up totally tight and I couldn't turn it. So anyway, that's okay now. And then for this end, what I did was I just got a pair of pliers, held there, levered it against the hub, and then popped it in the hole. So that's that done. So in theory, everything should be back to normal. Famous last words and all that. I've put a bit of copper slip on the operating lever. This is this part which gets pulled here by the handbrake cable. So I think everything is back to normal. I'm going to pull the handbrake on and see what happens. Well, I think it's okay. So I've released the handbrake again. I lined up this cable tie when it was pulled on and it's gone back. So now I'm going to put the drum back on, well, the disc, and see if everything's going okay thereafter. Right, I've test fitted the rear disc. It's fine. I put some anti-seize there, and I put a little bit of anti-seize on the interface, just in case any corrosion build-up decides to stop me getting the disc off easily enough. That will really depend on your location. If you're in Scotland, you can see exactly how things are, rust-wise, corrosion-wise. Not the best case scenario, but that's where we are. So I'm going to put this back on, and then I've got some retaining screws, 2 retaining screws there to hold it on. Well, that's definitely nice and smooth now. There's no hint of any dragging. Nothing's catching. Nice and smooth. I have actually gone over this with a bit of I think it's Manol, yep, Manol brake cleaner. So next thing is I'm gonna take this and get this cleaned up and get these slide pins moving very nicely indeed, hopefully. Well, I've given them all a bit of a wire brush up. It was a wire brush. Shims have been cleaned up. That's been kind of cleaned up. In the bores been cleaned up. And then I'm going to grease these slide pins with ceramic grease. I've gone over them a bit. They are a bit corroded, but they're cleaned up. So I'll start putting this back together and put the pads back into them. Alright, so I've cleaned up the shims, I've cleaned up the bores, I've cleaned up the grommets, or the gaiters, whatever you want to call them. The next thing to do is to put some grease on the slide pins. Now the tip I've seen multiple times is don't put any on the edge, or you get like a hydraulic lock or a bounce. Just put it on the edge. And the one with the rubber, that goes to the bottom part. It's something to do with when the wheel goes round and the brake comes on, the rubber dampens some vibration or something like that. Don't know if that's true, but well, that's what I've heard. So anyway, the one with the rubber bit, that goes to the bottom. So I'm going to be using this high temperature ceramic grease, just a small amount, not anything too drastic, making sure I get a decent seal around the top where water tends to get in. Alright, so that's the caliper back on. I still need to put the studs in. And then adjust the handbrake. Alright, so that's everything back to normal now. I've actually replaced the bolts here for newer, fresher ones, so hopefully they're alright. And then I'll just get the wheel back on. I'm not going to finish this completely today. I'm just going to see how the handbrake's performing, and then I'll need to adjust the tension of the cable inside the car, which you can get to through here. So that's still to get adjusted, but I'm going to put the wheel back on and drive it for a day or so and see how the handbrake is and if it's operating properly. So right now I'm going to put the wheel back on, get the bolts back in, and have a wee cup of tea. Well, everything's back to normal. I still need to adjust the tension of the handbrake cable. I really cocked up in a big way, and this is just a heads up for people for safety. I had people turning up, I had phone calls, and I got distracted and I forgot to put in that brace. There's the bolt. So I hadn't realised that, so I forgot to put the bolt in, and the wheel went in and it was rubbing against the top of the damper. But anyway, it doesn't seem like there's any damage, thankfully. But I got in the car and the steering wheel, instead of being like that, 12 o'clock, was like round this way. And I was like, what the hell's happened? I thought, have I got a puncture? But anyway, I hadn't put that cross member back in. So anyway, it's back in now, and as I say, it seems to be fine apart from having rubbed just at the top of the damper, the plastic shroud. It kind of rubbed through that, but it doesn't look like it's a big deal. So anyway, everything's working fine. There's no signs of any sounds or rubbing. As far as I'm aware, the pins are okay. So anyway, there you go. Don't be like me, don't multitask and lose your train of thought, and double check everything when you're coming to put everything back together. So anyway, if you feel like it, please feel free to like and subscribe, and if you've got any questions, I shall try and answer them. Cheers.